Hi everyone, I'm Shannon White, and this week I am presenting a video one for Module 3, When Thinking Like an Assessor and Digital Tools for Assessment. Here's a quick look at our agenda for what I'll cover in this video presentation. First, we'll talk about what it means to think like an assessor and how that connects to stage 2 of the backwards design process. Then I'll walk you through the 6 facets of understanding. And lastly, I'll explain different types of assessments and wrap up by highlighting a few digital tools that I use in my language arts class with my learners and how they support each type of assessment. All right, what does it mean to think like an assessor? According to Wiggins and McTighe, it means planning with evidence in mind or the assessment in mind. So last week, I believed in last week's video, I emphasized how as a teacher, my team and I, we always seem to go from stage 1 indirectly to stage 3. So we identify the learning goals and then we go straight to planning the different fun types of activities that would be interesting for our students. But what we should be doing before creating those activities is we need to be asking ourselves what will show that the students really understood the concept or the skills or the standards that we were teaching. So, this stage in the backwards design process, we identify what counts as acceptable evidence. And this just makes it so that we are being intentional. We're not just planning random activities. We are actually planning with a goal in mind. This is what the students need to be able to know and be able to do at the end. This is how we're going to show that they know how to do this. And it's not just us checking off a task or completion, or we've just gotten a grade for a fun activity that the students got to do. We're actually checking for deeper understanding. All right, so I know that the textbook and many of your discussions have discussed the GRASP acronym. However, like I said, I normally jump straight to the activities after planning the learning objectives. So I really wanted to give myself and present more of a thorough understanding of this stage 2. So I wanted to definitely highlight the 6 facets of understanding. So we have these are explain, interpret, apply, perspective, empathy, and self knowledge. So these facets go beyond the right and the wrong answer of whatever standard or skill or concept you're teaching. So they help us to assess if students can apply their knowledge in real world ways. Reflect on their thinking and consider other points of view. These are the kinds of outcomes that we should aim for when we are designing our assessments. All right, so let's talk about assessments and the different assessment types. So not all assessments are created equally, nor should they be. We have a mixture of them. So this graphic that you see on this slide, it comes directly from Understanding by Design textbook, and I'm just going to briefly explain each of them. So for formative, this can also be looked at the informal checks. It can also be looked at as a formative assessment, in which it helps us to adjust instruction in real time. Summative assessments, those are our observations. It can be observations and dialogues. So summative assessments show us what students know at the end of the unit. Performance tests involve applying knowledge in a real or simulated scenario. So maybe giving students a project at the end of a unit. In my case, as a teacher, and academic prompts, which can also be informal. It can be embedded into a lesson or a course. It can be informal or summative, depending on where you are in your course or in your unit. And it pushes students to think and write more critically. And informal checks, I've kind of already went over that with formative, but another informative check or check for understanding would be like an exit ticket at the end of a lesson. You might ask students to give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, if they understood, or this may be an exit ticket that the students have to complete by the end of class, whether it's something written, multiple choice, something that's digital, just so you can get a quick check or a quick pulse of where their understanding lies. All right, so on this slide, we're going into digital tools for assessments. So I have a multitude of tools and apps that can be utilized for any type of assessment. Um, so I don't have the actual names on there, but I'll just go through them and hover over them so you know what they are. So I have Kahoot, Blookit, Quizzes, Gimkit, Pear Deck, Nearpod, Edpuzzle, iExcel, Padlet, Mentimeter, Canva, Edugents, which I'll discuss a little bit in more detail on another slide, but this is something that my school district utilizes for assessments. We also have short answer and we will write. So I gave on a previous slide different types of assessments, like if it's formative, summative, performance based. And I wanted to break that down a little bit further and correlate it to the apps. So let's start with the formative or the informal assessments. So I've got Quizzes, Kahoot, Blookit, and Gimkit. So these tools are great for live feedback. And their review games. It's gamified, which is always fun for learners, especially my students. I teach younger learners, so they love when we gamify things and keeping my students engaged while checking for understanding. So I love using these when I want quick insight on what my students have grasped from whatever skill or standard I've taught. And it allows me to know, what do I need to come back tomorrow or come back sometime during this week and reteach. So in the video this week, one of the resources this week from English with Cambridge, Joanna emphasized not using too many apps because it may confuse learners. So I'm listing these tools, but my students definitely have a preference of which app they like to use when we're trying to when I'm trying to gamify a lesson. They love Blookit. And what's so great about these tools is, although it's gamified, the app like Blookit, it's not necessarily I'm not looking at the percent. I am looking at the percentage, but for the students, for the learners, it's gamified. It's not about, oh, I got the most right or I got the most wrong, and it's not set up for them to feel defeated at the end of the check, if that makes sense. All right, so moving on to summative assessments. So I have these three, which is iExcel, Edugents, and Edpuzzle. So these are more skill-based practice. They can't, well, iExcel can definitely be gamified. This is actually my first year where my district adapted iExcel. So it's skill based or standards based. And what's so cool about it is that the students, I can either assign a standard and a skill, and they get to practice on it. They can do it in real time if I put it in Jamboard mode. I used to do those as like warm ups at the beginning of class, where it can be a skill, is game it's not necessarily game based, but they get to play it together. And what I love about iExcel is that it has automatic reteaches. So if we are doing it as a GM board all together as a class, we all look at the same question at the same time, the students answer, and of course it's like a letter board, so whoever answers the quickest and gets the answers correct, they're at the top of the letter board. They love that aspect of it. But after the answer is revealed, um, it's kind of anonymous. So the students, they have just like a little icon. It's not their name posted up there. If they got it wrong, it's not like they're getting embarrassed because they got it wrong. But doing the Jamboard mode of iExcel, it allows me to give them a question. Everybody answers, and after the answer is revealed, it's a built-in reteach. So I can either teach from the teach in real time, or the students can just read through it themselves or with a partner, and then we can move on to the next question. Now, I said I'd come back to edugens. So edugens, this is something I'm not sure if every school district adapts has adapted to edugens, but pretty much it is connected to our high stakes test. I teach in the state of Texas, so my students take the STAR test at the end of the school year to show their level of mastery of the content. And it's for all subjects, but I'm going to speak more to reading and language arts. So this is where all assessments take place for our district, especially assessments where we want to compare it to where will the students be if they were to take the STAR test at the end of the year. This is the category they would be in, and our categories, it ranges from did not meets. Um, it just places them in a category after they take an assessment. So it could be did not meets, that means that their percentage was in they didn't pass. Approaches, it's they passed but just barely. Meets, that means they meet grade level. And mastery, that means that they mastered the grade level of whatever assessment or standard we were covering in that assessment. So it's good data. It's a good data collection for teachers, and it kind of lets us know, hey, they don't understand this. We need to figure out what we have to do to personalize the learning for students in this skill. And it also allows for students to be able to look and see where they are, and they can identify their strengths and weaknesses in any core subject. And that allows for teachers to sit, like what we do is we sit and we have like data meetings with our students, and they can look at like if we took a unit assessment, they'd be able to look at their score, look at the TEKS, which is our standards, and it's color coded in red or green whether they did well and it's a strength. That would be in green. If they didn't do well on a standard, it would be in red. And they can fill out a form themselves, and then when we have our data meeting, they can come to me and they'd be able to discuss with me, hey, I'm struggling with this, I know this is my weakness, this is what I'm going to do, or this is the help that I need from you to be able to move forward and master this standard. And Edpuzzle is really good for reteachers as well. Or let's say if I had a sub, I would a sub and I wasn't at school that day, I can assign an Edpuzzle to my students, and it could be a video that I have created or just a reteach video that I've created or posted, and they have to answer questions within the video. They can't move on to the end or to the next question until they answer it. So it's also a good data collector for teachers. All right, so moving on to reflections and collaboration. So for this, I have a Mentimeter, which was discussed in one of the resources for this week. I've used it in class before, but more as a poll for students. Pear Deck, this is also something that can be utilized. You can give videos in Pear Deck, or if I am not at school one day, I would probably utilize it to teach a concept. And it's just like a slide deck that students go through, and they are able to answer questions within it. It's interactive. And also Padlet. Padlet is more for like a brainstorm or for comments and post reflections or discussion for students at the end of class. Sometimes I use Padlet as an exit ticket for students as well. Okay, so the last assessment, what type of assessment, is the prompts and performance test. So I have Canva, short answer, and we will write. So for Canva, this is where students, they can design, this might be for the end of a unit, and this is their performance assessment. I teach language arts, so most of our performance assessments are geared towards writing, critical writing. They may have to write in essay format. However, that gets boring to students sometimes. They actually want to create something. So I utilize Canva as a tool where they can design maybe an infographic or digital poster or presentation so they can demonstrate their learning. Um, Short answer, I just found out about it this school year. I haven't utilized it yet, but it's very similar to We Will Write, and that's the one that I want to discuss a little bit further. I utilized that with my students this year. So it encourages structured academic writing, and it's collaborative for students. So the way that it works is student it's a little bit gamified as well. Students join and they're automatically anonymously placed into a team. And I give them not necessarily a prompt. Well, it's a prompt, but it's also a picture of something. And the students have to write towards whatever the prompt is. It might be a picture, and I'm asking them to write the end of this story. And it's interactive for them. They get to work on teams. It is anonymous, so they don't know who's on their team unless they tell each other who's on each other's team. Um, they don't know who's writing. They can also see what their teammates are writing, and is a built-in feature where they can actually give hints or they can help their partners. Even though it's anonymous, they can help them out once the timer ends. So it is timed, so it may be like a 3 to 5 minute timer. I get to set the timer. At the end of the timer, the system automates who had the best writing from maybe one person from each team, and we get to review it in real time. So it's anonymous, so nobody's embarrassed or has to be called out in the middle of class for any incorrect grammar or anything. But it gives me a chance to give real world feedback at the end of that feedback or just reviewing. Then students are able to choose who had the best writing. All right, so I wanted to end with leaving you guys with two questions. I know that I've created all of my presentations around my teaching, because I am a teacher, but I teach to a younger audience. But I've enjoyed watching most of you guys is how you utilize instructional design in different fields. So I wanted to ask these two questions. What do you consider evidence of your understanding, and are your assessments aligned with your end goals? And it can be teacher related, but eventually I would like to use my certificate for something that's outside of teaching, maybe teaching in PLC format or teaching adults or just in any other format. So I'm just interested to see um, how you guys utilize thinking like an assessor in different fields. All right, so thank you guys for watching. This is a list of my resources from my references for this week, and I hope it gave you a clear understanding of how I think like an assessor and the tools that I choose to align with my goals. And if you have any questions or any critiques, please feel free to share. Thank you.